does. So let's receive Kohanim Appleton.
Oh my goodness, it's good to be back in the house of Israel. I want to thank our esteemed teacher and leader for giving me the opportunity to come before you one more time to give you a teaching, because that's what we do in this house. We try our best to teach as much as we can. We are not the charismatic. We're not, what are you trying to tell me? You can't hear me. I need to talk up, turn my mic up. You need to turn my mic up. Oh my goodness. You know what's difficult? What's difficult is being in a mode of worship, and then I almost forgot I had to get up here and teach today. So, give me a second as I try to transition here. The Most High has blessed us all, and I thank Him for that. I want to extend a word of peace and shalom to all of you that have joined us today here in our studio audience, those that are viewing by way of the stream. I extend to you a word of peace. I also extend a word of peace to all our enemies who have shown up today to debunk and to shoot holes and for look for things that would discredit Hebrew Israel. No one in this house has arrived. That's from the bishop to the back door. Nobody. We're trying our best to study the Most High's word and do what He asks us to do. We haven't arrived. Okay? We're just trying to do what we can do to make the Most High pleased. Pleased is what the Most High is. I actually want to take a little twist today. Like our head teacher has mentioned, I'm closing out the book of Yahashua today. One of our ancestors, a great and mighty military leader, Yahashua, a resolve like no other. But in doing so, it's kind of difficult when you kind of get out of the mitzvot and teaching them and coming through the books that Moshe have written. And you get into these books here where you talk about Judges, which is Shoftim and Yahashua, and they keep going back to Moshe. So we've covered a lot of things already, and we're kind of going over some history, and we're also going to go over some mitzvot and commandments that the Most High has had in place that He's put in this text. It's kind of difficult sometimes to pull some things out. So I thought I'd be creative today. How many of you have been to the old church? How many of you were in the Christian church? By way of hands. Oh my goodness, it should be a whole bunch of people in here. Does everybody remember this thing called a testimony service? Where you would do what? You come up here and you testify. What did they say? If you're going to testify, don't sing. And if you sing, don't testify. My mind often drifted to this, and I'm going to actually take a turn today. There's a show. I believe it started in the UK. It's called Whose Line Is It? I think it started in the UK, and I think Drew Carey was the host of it for a while it was here in the United States. And what they would do is they would bring, you're going to ask, how in the world does this tie into a testimony service? It doesn't. What he would do is bring these comedians on stage, and he would give them scenarios. And in the scenario, they would have to act it out supposedly unscripted. Total, what I kind of do over there, which is improv, right? Okay. So I actually want to call on two people because I want to give you a scenario. And I want to hear you what we call pontificate about it. All right? First person I'm going to draft is Brother Beacom. Can you join me up here in the front? This dear brother works diligently in the back in our media center. And he is on fire for the Most High. Just sit right here for a second. The second person, it's okay. Stay right here. No, that's okay. You can come on up here if you feel comfortable. You're comfortable, okay. The second person I'm going to draft is you, dear sister. It's not a multiple choice. Come on up here. This is your scenario. You have lived long. You've lived long. Your life is full of years. The Most High has blessed you, has he not? Absolutely, he's blessed you. You have a testimony about the Most High blessing you, right? Good. You've lived long, and now you've come to almost the end of your days. And your children are gathered around you, right? Now, if Zay's not here, or I'd have him come sit right here. Your children are here, correct? There's one of them right there. There's another one back there in the media center, right? Oh, he's right there. Okay, good. Your children are here. They're gathered around you, okay? You have something you want to tell them about the Most High. I'm going on in years. I'm getting ready I don't have many days left. If there's one thing, or not one thing, but what would you tell your children moving forward about the Most High and what he's done for you? Words of wisdom for your children. All right. That's how we're going to set this up. Who wants to go first? Okay, come on.
I would tell my children that I didn't.
No. Introduce yourself. Let them know who you are because the people out there don't know.
Oh, I'm Brother Bickham. And I love it here at First Tabernacle Fellowship. And what I would tell my children is not to deviate from the Father's word. I would tell them that he has blessed me significantly to even make it to the age that I am. And if I had time and if I had breath, that I would tell them about some of the victories that he has given me and some of the things that I have asked him for and how he has blessed me and given me those things. And I've talked to Rabbi about a couple of things that I had asked the Father for in the past and through fruition throughout life. Because I'll say this, do I have a quick second? I asked the Father to allow me when I retired to be able to buy a home cash, because once I retired, I did not want a mortgage. So what the Father did is he placed me and my wife in a home and allowed us to sell the home and make enough money on it that all we have to do is find another place that we want to live, and we have the cash to buy a home cash. I asked that prayer 15, 20 years ago. He gave it to me. And he put me in a position to be able to do that. Now, if I can just hold on to it. But I think it's because I pray that it's because of the passion that I have for him inside. And when Kevin sings that song, and it really touched me and it made me cry, because that's the one thing that I do. I get down on my knees every morning and I get down on my knees every night. So he hear my voice early in the morning and late in the night. And I say, as long as you give me breath and the physical ability to get down on my knees, I'm going to do it. It'd be some cricking and cracking going on and my bones be popping, but I do it every morning and every night. So I thank the Father. So the thing that I would say, Sean, is I would tell my children, learn the Father's word and don't deviate from it.
Amen. All right. No. That's heartfelt. I need to get you into the space of this is something that if I never tell you anything else about your life and what you need to do, this is what I would tell you to do. There are parents in this room that know what I'm talking about. You preach to your children all the time. You have what we call bought sense, experiential knowledge. And this is something that they will live with for the rest of their days. So that was beautiful. Thank you, Brother B.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sister Kenya. Um, I have a confession. This whole scenario is blowing my mind because in 2018, I heard the call from Yahweh to come out from among them. I was a ride or die in Christianity. And when I say ride or die, I was going hard. Had various positions and things that I was doing in the church. And he called me out in 2018. And at first, I didn't understand it. He told me 3 times. And he told me to go and find out what he meant by come out from among them. And to be honest, I thought that my whole world, my foundation as I knew it, was kind of coming apart. But the wonderful thing about it is that he started teaching me things himself. He started showing me things and telling me, find out who you are. And he started leading me, teaching me my history about my people and my ancestors, and took me to what people call the Old Testament. I was still calling it that at that time, and just making me realize who I am and who he is. He led me here. And I have to admit, I kind of went through phases. Of course, I was, you angry, and then you just go through these different phases. But yet, still, I have to remind myself, or it's like he reminds me, it was grace, his grace, when I was in idolatry. Didn't know I was in idolatry. It was his grace that brought me this far. This question is touching to me because as I started learning, I share with my children because that's what the Torah said for me to do. But I was still battling because I kept remembering I was in idolatry for so long. I don't want to make a mistake and tell my children was wrong. But as much as I tried to prove it wrong, I couldn't. So I kept telling my children. And I noticed even when I had my doubts, I looked at my children, my oldest two, and they kept me going. It's like they took it and ran with it. And I watch them and I see the changes that Yahweh has made in their lives. And it keeps me going. I haven't shared this with my children. Only Yahweh knows this. But one of my prayers that I prayed to him, I told him, when it is my time, I want to be surrounded by my family the same way my ancestors were. And I want to be able to leave them words. I want to be able to bless them the same way my ancestors did. So for you to pose this question, My mind is blown. I have not shared this with anybody, not even my husband. My prayer is that when it is that time, I will know more about Yahweh than what I do today, that I keep his commandments and his mitzvos as best as I can and instill it upon my children to do the same. I would tell them, and it's been ringing in me, Rabbi, that truth matters. And I have to say that to myself a lot over and over, that truth matters. I would ask them to stay on what we know as the straight and narrow, because a lot of people, they're not doing what we're doing. They're not teaching what we teaching. And sometimes when you see that, it makes you feel like you're on the wrong path, but you're not. I would tell them not to remember what mom has done because I'm a mere human being, but remember what Yahweh has done for them and will continue to do for them. I would just ask the Father to continue to bless them and keep them, because I know that as the generations go down, I have hope and I have faith in Yahweh that his word will not return to him void. I want to see our people turn back to him. I want to see him come back and take us. I want to see those promises that he made to our ancestors and our forefathers. And that's what I would tell my children, to keep that in your hindsight, because there's so much that will distract you from that. This is heavy, real heavy, because nobody knew that but him.
Thank you, dear sister. That's beautiful. See, what we try to do in here is move with the Most High. I read this passage of scripture and tried to understand the gravity of what's going on in this text. The Most High spoke to me a week ago and said, "You can't do it." That testimony is out there with the children of Israel that have joined us here today, from this dear sister, from Brother Bingham, out of their own mouths. You heard the testimony of the Most High. Hold on to that. Hold on to that. What you're experiencing right now, hold on to it. Okay? This is going to make you understand and put you in a place, an emotional place that I need you to be in when we get to Yahushua 23 and 24. Okay? Thank you for your testimonies. Thank you for your testimonies. They have blessed individuals in this room here. And I praise the mighty Yah for putting his spirit in this place right now. Hmm, hmm. Praise the mighty Yah. Our Hebrew study today finishes out the book of Yahushua, chapters 22 through 24. In chapter number 22, the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh return to their land. The 10 tribes wage war. That's supposed to be war, not where. Against Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh for the altar that they built. Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh give their response for the building of this altar. That's in 22. 23, I'm not going to tell you what's in it. 24, I'm not going to tell you what's in it either. Because I'm going to let Yehoshua tell you. Okay? So, chapter number 22, let's get into it. Follow along with me. I'm going to go right through this chapter, starting at verse 1, and I'm going to start paraphrasing all the way through verse 8. What we have is a situation where the tribes of Manasseh, half tribe of Manasseh, the tribe of Gad, and the tribe of Reuben, they've been commissioned by not only Moshe, but then Yehoshua reiterates it and says, you are to join your brothers and cross the Jordan and fight with them so they can help them to occupy the land. Okay? And so what happens here is that now that the children of Israel have occupied the land, these 2.5 tribes are now going back to their land across the Jordan, on the east side of the Jordan. Well, the children of Israel, the rest of the 10 tribes, are on the west side of the Jordan. So they've helped their brothers win their battles, for the most part, occupy the land. Now it's time for them to matriculate back into their own land. They have riches and gold. And the text says that they have, what do they have with them? They took with them riches for their tents, livestock, silver and gold, bronze and iron, and great quantities of clothing. In verse 5, it reads, from Yehoshua to these 2.5 tribes, he says, as you're going back, only take great care to obey the mitzvot, or mitzvah, and the Torah of Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, gave you to what? Love your Yahweh, your Elohim, to follow all of his ways, observe his mitzvot, cling to him, and serve him with all your heart and being. He gives them this salutation as they're going across or back across the Jordan. You can find the commission for them to go ahead and fight with their brothers. First shows up in Bad Midbar chapter number 32. You can also go to Yehoshua chapter 1, verses 12 through 15, and also find that same commission as well, where they're ordained to go and help fight their brethren. They're told to do that. The rest of the chapter talks about a particular issue that the children of Israel had great zeal about. And what happens is as these particular tribes go back across, they decide amongst themselves to build an altar. Now, we all know what happens on the altar. Sacrifices happen on the altar and those types of things. Okay? They build an altar and it is majestic. The children of Israel in verse 11 say this, the 10 tribes, they see them build this altar and they say, look, the descendants of Reuben and the descendants of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh have built an altar by the frontier of the land of Canaan and in the area of the Jordan on the side that belongs to the people of Israel. So why are they building an altar when we already have one already? So the entire community of Israel gathered at Shiloh to wage war against their brethren. Okay? Now, the individual that heads up this war party is a man by the name of Pinchas. Pinchas in the Hebrew, his name means dark-skinned. Okay? Pinchas is famous. Why is Pinchas famous? He stabbed some folks through their chests. So he impaled some people. Right? It is earmarked as probably one of the absolute worst. And if I had to put on the top 10 list of the times that the Most High got angry at the children of Israel, it was because, well, this would be one of those situations. This Pincus had brought in this person there was a foreigner, and she was, worshiping other gods and whatnot, brought her in front of the tent. And then he saw this, and there was a plague that broke out. Does anybody know how many people died in that plague? That's why I said this is the worst one that has happened to the children of Israel. This plague killed 24,000 people. Okay? When probably the next one that comes after that, probably as far as a body count is concerned, is this issue with Korach. Okay? You had those initial couple of hundred people that died first, and then the very next day, 14,000 people or thereabouts died because they decided they wanted to run their mouths about what happened to those 100 folks the day before. Okay? So we've got an issue here where this issue is going to come up. And where Pincus actually impaled these people was at Peor. That's the place. Okay? So listen to what the children of Israel are saying here. Now, there's the heads of the clans of the children of Israel. There's 12 tribes. 2.5 of them are Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben. So we can't count them. So the children of Israel that are on the west side of the Jordan, there are how many tribes? 10 of them, okay? So all of the tribal leaders went to the tribal leaders of Gad and Reuben and Manasseh and talked to them. Now, Yahashua would have been there. Caleb would have been there, okay, along with Pincus, because Yahashua is the head of the tribe of Ephraim, okay? Caleb is the head of the tribe of Yehuda. So both Yahashua and Caleb would have been there in this party to go have a council, to come to what we call Jesus meeting with these folks. That was a poor attempt at Leviticus. I see they didn't get any reactions out of you, so I'll keep moving. Yahashua, chapter number 22, 16 through 20. That's not all of it. I'm going to read all of it. 16 starts. It says, here's what the whole community of Yahweh is saying against you guys, you clowns that have built this altar. It says, what is this treachery that you have committed against Elohim of Israel, turning away today from following Yahweh, in that you have built yourselves an altar, thus rebelling today against Yahweh? Is the guilt we incurred at Peor enough? I just told you what happened at Peor. The plague happened at Peor, and 24,000 people died. They said, do you want to invoke this again? We haven't cleansed ourselves from it this day, even though the plague came on the community of Yahweh. Is this why you have turned away today from following Yahweh? If you rebelled against Yahweh today, he will be angry tomorrow with the whole community of Israel. If the land you have taken possession of is unclean, then cross back over into the land which belongs to Yahweh. So don't even go back over there to where you've been designated to be. Come back over here and live with us. But don't rebel against Yahweh. Don't rebel against us by building yourselves an altar other than the altar of Yahweh, our Elohim. Din Achan, the son of Zerach, does anybody remember that guy? That guy, he was a part of the army when they went in to go ahead and sack the city and take it. Yahashua says, take all of the jewels and all of the precious metals and bring them into the treasury of Yahweh. This individual said, I need a couple gold bars for myself. I need a new Versace robe. I need something. I see them Tom Ford glasses that are sitting over there. And what he did was he went into his tent and he buried them. He went against what Yahweh had asked him to do. When they went into war, some Israelites died because of that. That's this guy. Verse 20 says, didn't Achan, the son of Zerach, commit a sin in regards to the things set aside for destruction? And Elohim's anger fell on the whole community of Israel. He was not the only one that died for his crime, right? Because who else died for that crime? His whole entire family died because of a decision that he made. You know, it's probably getting to this issue of aiding and abetting and harboring a fugitive. Okay? So they're bringing to the attention. See, the children of Israel are funny to me. When they're hot for the Most High, they're hot for the Most High. They're on top of it. But as soon as something goes away, that leader, that divine leader, that generation comes by that doesn't know anything about Yahweh, they get cold as ice. Cold as ice. Ice cold. You can find these references in Bad Midbar, chapter number 25, 1 through 9, of the incident of Peor, where 24,000 people died. This, again, must have been the worst plague. And I actually have that up here. I was going to go to it real quick. Bad Midbar, which is the book of Numbers, says, Israel stayed in Shittim, and there the people began whoring with the women of Moab. These women invited the people to sacrifices of their gods, where the people ate and bowed down to their gods. With Israel thus joined with Baal of Peor, the anger of Yahweh blazed up against them. Verse number 21, back in Yahashua, chapter number 22. Let's listen to the response that Gad and Reuben and the half tribe of Manasseh gave them, because they said, the reason you think we built this is not the same reason why we did it. They give him a specific reason on why they did. It says, the mighty one of Elohim, the mighty one, Elohim, is Yahweh. He knows, and Israel will know. If we acted in rebellion or treachery against Yahweh, don't vindicate us today. We haven't built an altar. Remember that word, altar. We haven't built an altar in order to turn away from following Yahweh or to offer it burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices as peace offerings. If we have, let Yahweh himself require us to atone for it, not you. Rather, we did this out of anxiety because we thought sometime in the future, your descendants might say to our descendants, you don't have anything to do with Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel. Why is that, y'all? They're on the other side of the Jordan. The other 10 tribes on the other side of the Jordan. They're on the west side of the Jordan. The temple's on the other side, where the Most High is. They got to cross over. So there could be some time like you said, in the future generations where they tell them, you're not a part of us because this water separates us. Okay? Could have had a conversation about that before you went ahead and built that altar to create all this drama. But let's go on. 25. Actually, let's back up a little. Let's go back up a little bit. 24. Rather, we did this out of anxiety because we thought sometime in the future your descendants might say to our descendants, you don't have anything to do with Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, because Yahweh made the Jordan the border between us and you. So the descendants of Reuben and Gad have no share in Yahweh. In this way, your descendants could make our descendants stop fearing Yahweh. So we said, let us make preparations and build ourselves an altar, not for burnt offerings and sacrifices, but as a witness between us and you, and between our generations who will come after us, so we may perform the service of Yahweh in his presence with burnt offerings and sacrifices and peace offerings. So your descendants will not say to our descendants at some time in the future, you have no share in Yahweh. Verse 28, for this reason we said, we will then accuse us or future generations in that way. We will say, look, here is a replica of the altar of Yahweh, which our ancestors made, not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a witness between us and you. Far be it from us that we should rebel against Yahweh and turn away today from following Yahweh and build an altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, or sacrifices other than the altar of Yahweh, which stands in front of the tabernacle. So does everybody kind of understand their reasoning for why they did it? They did it as a kind of, let's say, we built a monument, and this monument commemorates the idea that we don't want anybody to ever say that we are cut off from Yahweh, that we stand with you and we will always be a part of the children of Israel as a collective. We will not abandon the ways of the Most High. We just want something to commemorate it. Okay? That's the reason why they didn't explain that. Why in the world, when that word and that whole entire passage through verses 28, 22, all the way through 29, which I read, why that word altar kept coming up over and over and over again, and why it took me back across the street to the 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 11 o'clock service, and why they incorporate an altar in Christianity and what it stands for. Because I remember when there used to be a pulpit up there, and we as kids, we weren't allowed to go into the pulpit because the pulpit was holy. That's the altar. That's holy. You don't go there. So I did a little bit of research on why the Christian church incorporates this idea of an altar. And this is what I had found. Kind of a sidebar, okay? I'm taking a rabbit trail. I'm giving you some information, okay? Just on the side. Then I'm going to get back in the text. It says the altar. So I wrote down this topic. I said, what's the difference between an altar and a pulpit in the Christian church? The altar and the pulpit are vertical in the sense that the altar is a place where people offer sacrifices up towards God. This is what I'm reading verbatim. We don't use that term, but I'm just reading verbatim. The pulpit is where the word of God comes down from him to his people. Presently, in some churches, in the Roman Catholic Church and in Eastern Orthodox Church, they still have altars. They exist because in those churches, the idea is that the Lord's Supper, everybody knows what the Lord's Supper is, right? That's when they go over here and they eat their edibles. All right. So it says they exist because in those churches, the idea of the Lord's Supper is in some way the actual body and blood of Christ. Therefore, when it is presented in the church service, it is considered as if for a sacrifice on that altar. So we're sacrificing a man on an altar. We're drinking his blood and eating his body. I wish your daughter was here. I wish she was here because I would ask her. I would say, you know what? Do you eat blood? She would say, no, I don't eat blood. So why would I believe in a scheme? It's called machination. It's called a plot or a scheme that has evil intention. Why would I believe in some machination that says that I'm supposed to eat somebody's blood and eat somebody's body on an altar? That's where that all kind of comes from, out of the Christian church, to kind of commemorate that idea. Okay? But we all know as Hebrews, the Most High, what an altar means for us. Chapter ends out by just simply saying that they received what was told to them, and at least the 10 tribes or the 10 leaders, they received the explanation and they backed off. Pinchas returned back to Gilead in the land of Canaan, or I should say the descendants of Reuben and Gad and Manasseh returned to the land of Gilead, to the land of Canaan, and they went back, Pinchas and the 10 tribes, back across the Jordan into the land of Israel, and they called that place Ed, which is in Hebrew the word witness. That's what that altar is named. Now, getting back to our testimonies, because chapters number 23 and 24 go absolutely together. Getting back to the testimonies that we heard earlier. It is funny to me. Did you guys read this portion of text? You two almost quoted it verbatim. This is a man, Yehoshua, who has led the children of Israel, has been by the side of Moshe in the desert, has had the ability to get the children of Israel across the Jordan. Okay? He has been the gap, or been the glue, not the gap, but the glue, to bring the children of Israel into the land to fulfill the covenant that the Most High made with Abraham. He's being used to do that. This is that guy. Okay? His time is long. I started out by saying that to you all, didn't I? Your years have been long. You've lived long. 23 starts out this way, and we are going to hear, we heard your sister testimony, we heard Brother Bingham's testimony. We're going to hear Yehoshua's testimony on what he would tell his kids. Okay? This is what he would say to his kids. A long time afterwards, when Yahweh had given Israel rest in the land, given them rest from all their surrounding enemies, and Yehoshua was old, and age was taking a toll. Yehoshua summoned Israel, the leaders, heads, judges, and officials. Stick a pin in that. We're going to come right back to that, okay? And he says this is his testimony. I submit to you verbatim, as we close the book of Yehoshua, this is what your great ancestor said to those that were coming after him on what you should do. We're in that space, okay? Let's stay in that space. I am old. Age is taking its toll. You've seen everything that Yahweh, your Elohim, has done to all of the nations because of you. For it is Yahweh, your Elohim, who has fought on your behalf. Here, I have allotted to you the land for inheritance according to the tribes between the Jordan and the Great Sea to the west. It includes the land of the nations I have destroyed and the nations which remain. Yahweh, your Elohim, will thrust them out ahead of you and drive them out of your sight. So you will possess their land as Yahweh, your Elohim, told you. Therefore, be very firm in keeping and doing everything that is written in the book of Torah of Moshe, and not turning, what did Bikram say? Not turning aside from it, either to the right or to the left. Then you won't become like those nations remaining among you. Don't even mention the names of their Elohims. Let alone have the people swear by them, serve them, or worship them, but cling to Yahweh, your Elohim, as you have done this day. This is why Yahweh has driven out great, strong nations ahead of you. And it explains why no one has prevailed against you, Hebrew Yisra'el. To this day, why one man of you has chased thousands, it is because Yahweh, your Elohim, has fought on your behalf, as he has said to you. Therefore, take great care to love your Yahweh, your Elohim. Otherwise, if you retreat, and cling to the remnant of these other nations remaining among you, if you make marriages with them, this applies to you right now. Right now. Your master teacher in this house talks about how Jeremiah, the prophet, speaks to Hebrew Israel right now. Yehoshua is speaking to everybody under the sound of my voice right now in present day. 12. Otherwise, if you retreat and cling to the remnant of these other nations remaining among you, if you make marriages with them and have children with them, and they with you, know for certain that Yahweh your Elohim will stop driving out these nations from your sight. Instead, they will become a snare and a trap for you, whipping your sides and pricking your eyes until you perish from this good land which Yahweh your Elohim has given you. Today, I'm going the way of all the earth. Therefore, consider it in all your heart, and being that not one of all the good things Yahweh your Elohim said concerning has failed to happen. It has all come to pass. Nothing of it has failed. Nevertheless, just as all the good things Yahweh your Elohim has promised you have come upon you, likewise, Yahweh will bring upon you all the bad things too, until he has destroyed you from the good land which Yahweh your Elohim has given you. When you violate the covenant of Yahweh your Elohim, which he ordered you to obey, and go and serve other Elohims and worship them, then the anger of Yahweh will blaze up against you, and you will perish quickly from the good land which he has given you. This is his testimony as he's on his way out. Man, I almost want to jump to 24. Matter of fact, I am going to jump to 24. I'm going to come back to a concept that I talked about early in 23. I'm going to keep going on. 24, let's read on. This is our ancestor we're talking about, Yehoshua. Verse 2 through 15. He continues and he says, in antiquity, your ancestors lived on the other side of the Euphrates. Terach, the father of Avraham and Nahor, and they served other Elohims. I took your ancestors Avraham from beyond the river, led them through all the land of Canaan, increased his descendants, and gave him Yitzhak. I gave to Yitzhak and Yaakov and Esau. To Esau I gave Mount Seir as his possession, but Yaakov and the children went down into Mitzrayim, which is Egypt. I sent Moshe and Aharon. I inflicted plagues on Mitzrayim in accordance with what I did among them, and afterwards I brought you out. Yes. Now this is Yahweh speaking to the children of Israel through Yehoshua. Verse 6. Yes, I brought your forefathers out of Egypt. You arrived at the sea, and the Egyptians were pursuing you, your ancestors with their chariots and their horsemen and the sea of Suph. I apologize. But when they cried out to Yahweh, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians, overwhelmed them with the sea, and drowned them. Your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and then you lived in the desert for a long time. Yahweh, I brought you into the land. Not on your own volition. I did that. I brought you into the land of the Emori, living beyond the Jordan. They fought against you, but I handed them over to you. You took possession of the land, and I destroyed them ahead of you. Then Balak, the king of Zippor, this is that guy that wanted the children of Israel to be cursed. And he went to go get the prophet, and the prophet wouldn't do it. All he did is bless him. That's prior to what happened to Baal Peor with Pinchas. It says, then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, rose up and fought against Israel. He sent and summoned Balaam, the son of Beor, to put a curse on you. But I refused to listen to Balaam, and he actually blessed you. In this way, I rescued you from him. Next, you crossed the Jordan and came into Jericho. The men of Jericho fought against you, the Emori, the Pizri, the Kenani, the Hitti, the Gigashi, the Hivi, and the Uvisi. And I handed them over to you. I sent hornets ahead of you, driving them out. Do you see what the Most High is doing for this people? He is recanting all the things that he has done for your ancestors. And we were sitting over there at that 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 11 o'clock service, not getting any of this history about your ancestors and your people. The mighty Yahweh says, lest I remind you what I did for you. 12, I sent hornets ahead of you, driving them out ahead of you. The 2 kings of the Emory, it wasn't by your sword or your bow. Then I gave you a land where you had not worked and cities you had not built. And you live there. You eat fruit from vineyards and olive groves, which you didn't plant. Therefore, children of Israel, fear Yahweh. Serve him truly and sincerely. Put away the Elohims your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates and in Mitzrayim, and serve Yahweh. If it seems bad to you to serve Yahweh, then choose today whom you are going to serve. Will it be the Elohims of your ancestors beyond the river, or the Elohims of the Emory in which the land you are living? As for me and my household, we will serve Yahweh. The children of Israel respond. Oh, fickle Israel. Fickle Israel. What did I say earlier? When Israel is hot for the Most High, they are hot for the Most High. Will cut you off at your knees for the Most High. That's my woman you messing with. I'm going right upside your ever-loving skull up to the white meat is what I'm going to do. That's how adamant Israel comes in when they talking about their Yahweh, when they hot for Yahweh. I'm going to read this on what their affirmation was, because like in the very next chapter when we get in the show team, let's go over here and follow the prosperity gospel. There's a move in the spirit over here. Let's do something this. That's what the children of Israel start doing. Okay? That's what y'all own to this day. But let's see how they respond. They say in 16, in Yahushua chapter number 24, the people answer, far be it from us that we would abandon Yahweh to serve other Elohims, because it is Yahweh, our Elohim, who brought us and our forefathers out of the land of Mitzrayim from a life of slavery, and did those great signs before our eyes, and preserved us along the way we traveled and among all the peoples we passed through. And it was Yahweh who drove out from ahead of all the peoples, the Emory living in the land. Therefore, we too will serve Yahweh, for he is our Elohim. They just made their affirmation, say, this day choose. And they chose this day, and they said, we choose Yahweh. Yahushua said to the people, you can't serve Yahweh because he is a holy Elohim, a jealous Elohim. He will not forgive you of your crimes and sins. Listen to this. If you abandon Yahweh and serve foreign Jesus Christians, if you abandon Yahweh and serve foreign Elohims, he will turn, doing you harm and destroying you after he has done you good. But the people said to Yahushua, no, we don't want that. But we will serve Yahweh. Yahushua said to the people, he says, you are a witness against your own selves, yourselves, that you have chosen Yahweh to serve him. They answered, we are a witness. Now, Yahushua urged, put away the foreign Elohims you have among you and turn your hearts to Yahweh. Parting words of wisdom. The Elohim of Israel. The people answered Yahushua, we will serve Yahweh, our Elohim. We will pay attention to what he says. This is the commitment that our ancestors have made. And what have we done? We have totally abandoned that. We are getting our foots broken. I was going to say something else. I was going to be a little vulgar, but I can't do that while I'm up here, okay? Because this is a family channel. No. We are getting beat up. We are getting our faces smeared. We are a laughing stock among everybody. The children of Israel can't get it together. We wonder why all of this is happening and we're not seeing any deliverance. Because what we're doing is practicing what we call insanity. Everybody knows what the definition of insanity is, right? Is when you keep doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you're going to get a different result. Why don't we try Yahweh, y'all? And just prove that it doesn't work. Let's just try it and see what happens. And then we can actually say, you know what? We tried Yahweh. We tried doing all of the mitzvot. We got back into land and he just didn't deliver anything for us. Okay? It's not how that works. To end the chapter and to end Yahushua, the book of Yahushua. And then I'm going to go back to a concept that I talked about earlier that I want to kind of get into, give you some exposition on it. Yahushua made a covenant with the children of Israel that day. He wrote everything down in the book, and he commemorated by putting a stone, another monument by the sanctuary, and says, today, let this stone be a witness between everyone and Yahweh that you've chosen Yahweh. After which, Yahushua, the mighty military leader, the man with resolve like no other, a man called for that time. Moshe had a dispensation of time that he was in and served the Most High diligently. Yahushua served and did his commission without a fault. At the end, Yahushua dies at the age of 110. He's buried in his own city. As the land was getting partitioned and given out by lot, they actually gave Yahushua his own city. He was buried in his own city. The text says this. It says in verse 31, Israel served Yahweh throughout the lifetime of Yahushua and the lifetimes of the leaders who outlived Yahushua. And all that had known the deeds of Yahweh had done on the behalf of Israel. So Israel followed after the ways of the Most High as long as Yahushua was around, as long as the elders that outlived Yahushua were around, and the people that could remember were around. Once all of those people were gone, they served the Most High. What a beautiful way to end this chapter. Chapter number 24, 32 through 33, and we ended here where it just simply talks about the bones of Yosef were brought up from Mitzrayim. They were buried in the land that Yaakov had purchased for 100 shekels. You can find that in Bereshit, chapter number 33, verses 18 through 19. And I'm going to go there. It's not there on the board, but Sister Hollis back there has it ready for me. It says, having traveled from Padan Aram, Yaakov arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan, and he set up a camp near the city. Read what's on the page, Sean. From the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he bought for 100 pieces of silver the parcel of land where he had pitched his tent. There he put up an altar which he called El Elohe Israel, which is Yahweh, the Yahweh of Israel. And that's a reference back into Yahashua chapter 24, verses 32, where it talks about where the bones of Yosef were buried. They were buried at that site that was purchased by Yaakov for 100 pieces of silver. The final person that we say goodbye to in Yahashua is the chief priest, the Kohanin Hagadol, which is Eleazar. He passes away too at the end of this particular chapter and is buried in the hills of Ephraim. Now, we all know that he is a Levite, and the Levites don't have land. So those individuals that are part of the tribes of Israel, that's where we get that tithe from. I want to leave you with that, brother. You've been into the Christian church, right? They talk about tithe all the time, don't they? Right? They will tell you this, that the law's been done away with, right? They say that, right? They said law's been done away with. You don't have to do that anymore. It's old and done away with. You can tell them, next time you ask me for a tithe, I don't have to give it to you because that's part of the mitzvot that's old and done away with. Okay? Stop using Hebrew terminology to justify filling your pockets. Okay? Let's just be real about where that is. And the reason why we can't call them on it is because we don't teach the mitzvot. That's very quintessential and key. So when someone comes to you with some charlatan gospel trying to get something out of you, you don't know anything. You don't know any better because you don't know the laws of the Most High and how to properly apply them, okay? We end out the chapter Bad Midbar or Bereshit. That's where I gave you that reference. And we are actually complete with Yahashua, the whole entire series of Yahashua. Now, I want to actually go back to something and do a little study real quick. Now, this is my interpretation of this. I know that there are some esteemed students of the Hebraic text that will probably have a couple of deviations from what I'm getting ready to show you, but this is just my interpretation of this. Now, back in chapter number 23, there was a portion that read that at the beginning of it, we go back to the beginning of 23. Let's go back there and get that. Chapter number 23 of Yehoshua. I'm going to be very quick and brief about this. I'm glad the Most High segued into this way. At the beginning, verse 1, it says, a long time afterwards, when Yahweh had given Israel rest from all their lands, surrounding enemies, and Yahashua was old, and old age was taking its toll, Yahashua summoned all Israel, the leaders, the heads, the judges, and officials. Does everybody understand? And I read this and I said, I don't know if we've ever done a quick study on kind of the hierarchy of how the Hebraic system works. Maybe that's something you may be interested in, you may not be interested in, but I'm trying to equate it to something that you know that you're pretty familiar with, okay? Everybody's familiar with this, right? It's called the United States government. You live in it. You abide by it, right? We are governed by the Constitution, right? That's up at the top. We got the Constitution. And then we got the founding fathers that wrote the Constitution. Does anybody know who wrote the Constitution? Last name starts with an M. James Madison. There we go. James Madison wrote it. Okay? Constitution was given. They break off into three branches of government. Our executive branch, where the president and the vice president are, and then there's the cabinet. We have our judicial branch, where the Supreme Court is, and then we have the legislative branch as well, where Congress and the Senate is. And then down here, I got to note, you can't read it, but it says 435 elected representatives total are in the House of Representatives. The representatives are based on each state's population. Now, I did a little study on that to dispel this issue amongst you Hebrews about taking out of context about being 3/5 of a person. Because they used to tell us that all the time, right? You're 3/5 of a person. They used to count you as 3/5 of a person. Back in what, slavery? The reason they did that was because of a state's taxes and how many seats they get in the House of Representatives. Okay? So if a state has a huge amount of slaves in it, and they count that population, okay? It goes towards the representatives or seats that you have. It has to do everything with politics in the House of Representatives, okay? Right? So let's put that in its proper context. It has everything to do with taxes and the elected seats in the House of Representatives at that particular time. We're familiar with that, right? That's kind of what you kind of learn in school about our three branches of government, okay? That's for this dispensation of time that you live in, okay? And there's a hierarchy that's there. There's the president and the vice president, and then there's the cabinet if we go through the executive branch. Do we know what ours is as Hebrews? Do we know our hierarchy as Hebrews? Let's take a look at it. First of all, like James Madison, who wrote the Constitution, let's see what we got here. We got a bunch of these here. Yahweh is at top, right? There is nobody above Yahweh. Who's underneath Yahweh? Like the Constitution, the mitzvot are underneath Yahweh. Moshe is not higher than the mitzvot. That is why this is important for you to understand. The mitzvot come next. Out of the mitzvot, you have your divine leader, which later on, after the children of Israel abandon the Most High, or matter of fact, let's just say this. The last divine leader, we just saw him pass away today. Okay? In Yahushua. Because after which, we're going to start getting a bunch of these guys. Judges. Now, judges were around when the divine leader was around, because it mentions them in text. Okay? So what we have over here next is who's underneath the divine leader. Judges can be underneath the divine leader. Who else is underneath the divine leader? The Kohanin Hagadol. He is the high priest. Who is this? Aharon. Aharon doesn't hold rank over Moshe. When you read text, it's Moshe, do this and tell your brother to do X. Bring your brother to do this. Okay? Underneath the Kohanim Hagadol, let's build this side over here. We have whom? The head Kohen. The two individuals that stood with Aharon, they brought strange fire and got burnt to a crispy crisp. Yes, they did. Get it in fried chicken, right? You also have a person, I believe, in the form of Itamar, who is over the Kohanim and Leviim. These are going to be the people like the tribe in the tribe of Leviim. They're broken up into three different sections. What did I say there were? Gershom, Mari, and who else? Kahat. Those are the individuals that are carrying the articles. And the head Kohen is over top of these guys. All right? You can back that up with text. And I'm going to read them all to you so you can go look it up. Because I know there's some folks over here that saying, where are you getting all this information from? I'm going to give you where I'm getting this from. And then from here, you have servants and helpers. All right? There's individuals that are there, that are at the tent, that are helping direct people on where they need to go. There's an individual, I forget his name, and I know you astute folks are going to be able to tell me who it is, that the helpers, the women that were helping at the sanctuary or at the tent of meeting, he was having intercourse with them. And that happens, I think, later on in Samuel, somewhere over in there. Eli's son, yeah. He's having intercourse with these folks down here. Okay? So that's how our hierarchy is set up over here. Now, on this side, what we have is our official, well, actually, what we have is our tribal heads. I talked about them today when the tribal heads went and they talked to Manasseh and Gad and Reuven, the heads of those tribes, those that represent the children of Israel, or that particular, like the tribe of Naphtali was named there. Ephraim, when you talk about Yehoshua. Caleb, when I said Yehuda. You have your tribal head. And then you have your tribal leaders. And then underneath your tribal leaders, you have your tribal officials. These guys come into play that when I killed somebody inadvertently, I have to go to the city of refuge. I stand at the gate. I'm supposed to talk to the tribal officials about what happened. Then we kick up from there. Okay? It's kind of how our hierarchy is set up so you can see it. Now, if I was to start drawing little pretty little lines on here, I'd do something like this. Boom. Yahweh's at the top. That looks horrible. Yahweh's at the top. Kicks down to the mitzvot. He's over the judges. He's also over the Kohanim, Hagadol, head Kohen, Leviim, and servants. This guy is over here, and this guy is also over the tribal heads as well, leaders and officials. That is our hierarchy. It is very much different than what we're experiencing right now. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is because it was a segue to say, wow, he said he brought all of the judges and all of the leaders and all of these individuals. I don't know if I fully understand how our structure is set up. And like I said, I did some research on it, try to give you the pictorial part of it. Let me give you where I got all that from. Just so like we're in a courtroom. I love that analogy that our head teacher makes. If I was in a court of law and I had to stand my behind in front of Judge Judy, cite your sources. Okay, Judge Judy, my sources come from Judges chapter 2, verses 16. This is after Yehoshua's death. The Most High rose up judges to act as the divine leader. 12 judges come before Israel. This is another bullet point. The last judge was Samuel. Due to Samuel's son not following in the ways of the Most High, Israel asked for a king. It wasn't intended for you to have a king, to lead them as the other nations. You can find this in 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 1 through 19. Aharon is appointed the Kohanim Hagadol from the divine leader in Vayikra chapter number 8. In Bamidbar chapter number 3, verse 2 through 4, you see an example of Aharon's sons as priests and serving as head priests over the Kohanim in Bamidbar 3 and chapter 3 and verse 32. In Yehoshua chapter 9, verses 26 through 27, we see the Givonites, the helpers. The Givonites as helpers, drawing water for the community of Israel for the altar. The chiefs and leaders are underneath the Kohanim Hagadol, which I've shown there in Yehoshua chapter 23, verse 14. As Eleazar, the leader and is the head of the Kohanim. There, 10 represent each the main tribes that go talk to Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh. And my last reference is Yehoshua chapter 7, verse 16 through 18, that shows the structure of the heads and leaders and families and tribes. That's that whole issue when they started pulling lots. They said, okay, well, this individual went over there and violated what I told you to do about putting that stuff in the treasury. Let's figure out who did it. Pulled the lot, Yehuda. Pulled the head of that tribe, that family, boom, boom. That's what I'm getting to, is how they got down to Achan is through that structure of what we see here in Yehoshua chapter 7, verses 16 through 18, on how the structure of the heads of those tribes is set up. I thank the Most High for allowing me to get through the book of Yehoshua. I never understood the depth and breadth of my ancestor till I went through this book. He is an individual that I respect for his ability to be unwavering from turning to the left or to the right when it comes to the Most High's word and directing the children of Israel and able to get them into the land, following every precept the Most High has said. He is a model leader. I am elated for the day when I can pull him aside and have some idle chit chat and talk to him about the things that he went through with the children of Israel. How in the world were you able to keep your sanity with this stiff-necked, hard-headed folk that don't want to move? How did you do it? Looking back on this book, some might say that Yahushua was a heartless man. I don't think so. Yahushua's heart was for his people and the compassion for his people to make sure that the covenant of Aharon, his ancestor, was taken and brought to fruition. His compassion for his people made him act in a way where he had to be unwavering. He cannot be in a point where he's wavering between two opinions. Model leader. Model leader. And I thank the Most High for allowing me to be able to see the things that I saw in this. The thing that the Most High that I'm so excited about. I sound like my wife. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Hello. I'm so excited. I'm going to get it in the car. Is that when I go back through it a second time, there's going to be things that I didn't see. And I'll be able to pull them out and compound on what we did thus far. I want you to be encouraged and blessed by this book, this text, this man, model human being, deserves a seat at the top with Moshe and the rest of his ancestors. With that being said, you are going to enjoy the book of Shoftim. If you like, what? I'm going to say something that's going to date me. If you like General Hot, what is the one? The Young and the Restless? You like what? You like watching them soap operas? You like hip hop housewives of Sacramento? You like watching all that drama? Wait till we get to Shoftim. And I'm going to tell you, right before I teach Shoftim, I want this place packed with all the women when I start talking about Deborah and her girl, Yael. I know y'all have seen the movie Set It Off. Okay? Wait till we get to Deborah. I almost want to do that King Kong thing that Denzel. I ain't got nothing on me. I'm going to tell you what. Y'all females ain't got nothing on this female. Deborah is nothing to play around with. And her girl, Yael, ain't nothing to play around with either. Wait till we get there. We are going to be blessed by this next series that I'm going to get into, which is Shoftim, which is the book of Judges. I thank you again. I want to bless you all as we come to closure here. My fellow Hebrews, my countrymen, my kinsmen, all of you, Yivarekaka Yahweh ve'yishmareka. Ya'er Yahweh panav eleka v'huneka yisar Yahweh panav eleka v'yasam laka shalom. Which simply means, may Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and show you his favor. May Yahweh lift up his face toward all of you and give you shalom. Hebrews in exile. You know what we do? Let's go.